Microsoft SQL Server 2005 is most powerful database platform which is bundled with extremely amazing features. Microsoft SQL Server 2005 completely redefines the SQL Server database platform and provides very good database and BI platform on which small, medium and large organizations can build infrastructure. It's quite ahead in terms of performance over SQL Server 2000. SQL Server 2005 is an excellent database platform for large-scale online transactional processing. It is also very useful for e-commerce applications. In short and simple words, SQL Server 2005, a strong database and BI platform which offers reduced downtime, which has got increased performance and scalability and tight yet flexible security controls. SQL Server 2005 editions. SQL Server 2005 has got 32-bit as well as 64-bit editions. The selection of edition depends upon your application needs in terms of features. It depends on the organizational and individual requirements. Let's try to understand how to make the best choice among the editions and components available in SQL Server 2005. Deciding among SQL Server 2005 editions. You can use all editions of SQL Server 2005 in production environments except for SQL Server 2005 Developer Edition and SQL Server 2005 Evaluation Edition. Let's try to understand different editions of SQL Server 2005. SQL Server 2005 Express Edition, 32-bit only. The SQL Server Express Edition is a replacement for Microsoft Desktop Engine, also known as MSDE, and integrated with Microsoft Visual Studio 2005. SQL Server Express is free and it can be redistributed subject to agreement. SQL Server Express Edition functions as the client database as well as a basic server database. Typically, it's a choice of developers. SQL Server 2005 Evaluation Edition, which comes in 32-bit as well as 64-bit. SQL Server 2005 is also available in a 180-day Evaluation Edition for 32-bit as well as 64-bit platforms. SQL Server Evaluation Edition supports the same feature set as SQL Server 2005 Enterprise Edition. SQL Server 2005 Workgroup Edition, 32-bit only. This edition is preferred by small organizations. It includes the main database features of the SQL Server product line and is easily upgradable to SQL Server 2005 Standard or Enterprise Edition. SQL Server 2005 Workgroup Edition is an ideal entry-level database that is reliable, robust and easy to manage. SQL Server 2005 Standard Edition comes in 32-bit as well as 64-bit. SQL Server 2005 Standard Edition is the data management solution for small and medium-sized organizations. It includes the essential functionality needed for data warehousing and many more business solutions. Standard Edition has got the essential capabilities needed to support the different app operations in an organization. SQL Server 2005 Standard Edition is ideal for small to medium-sized organization that needs a complete data management and analysis platform. SQL Server Standard Edition also supports clustering, but it's limited for 2 nodes only. SQL Server 2005 Developer Edition, 32-bit and 64-bit. SQL Server 2005 Developer Edition is a developer's database platform and developers can build any type of applications on top of SQL Server. It includes all of the functionality of SQL Server 2005 Enterprise Edition but is licensed for use as a development and test system, not as a production server. SQL Server 2005 Developer Edition is an ideal choice for independent software vendors, consultants, system integrators, solution providers and corporate developers who build and test applications. And finally, SQL Server 2005 Enterprise Edition. This also comes with 32-bit as well as 64-bit. Enterprise Edition fulfills performance requirement to support the largest enterprise online transaction processing, highly complex data analysis, data warehousing systems, and websites. Enterprise Edition has got the comprehensive business intelligence and analytics capabilities. Enterprise Edition comes with high availability features such as failure clustering. Server Enterprise Edition is ideal for the largest organizations and the most complex requirements. SQL Server 2005 Tools and Utilities. With the release of SQL Server 2005, Microsoft has introduced new tools and utilities. We'll go through these tools in brief, and next few slides we are going to cover those in detail. To start with, SQL Server Management Studio. With SQL Server 2005, Microsoft has introduced new administration tool that is called as SQL Server Management Studio. You might have used Enterprise Manager with SQL Server 2000 many times. The next one is SQL Server Configuration Manager. SQL Server Configuration Manager is used to manage services and network configuration. You can start, stop, or restart the SQL services using SQL Server Configuration Manager. Surface Area Configuration Tool. You can manage features of various SQL Server components with Surface Area Configuration Tool. Business Intelligence Development Studio. The Business Intelligence Development Studio is provided with SQL Server 2005 as a BI solution. Using analysis and reporting services, BI solutions can be created effectively. Database Tuning Advisor. This is the new tool introduced in SQL Server 2005 which helps in optimizing the performance. SQL CMD. The SQL CMD utility lets you manage the SQL Server database by command line through SQL statements, system procedures, and script files. Let's go through some snaps here to understand the new tools in a better way. SQL Server Management Studio. Using SQL Server Management Studio, you can manage both local and remote servers. You can create and manage server groups. SQL Server Management Studio also has got Object Explorer, which gives listing of objects like tables, views, and store procedures. If you have got lot of databases with many objects loaded, it is difficult to see the objects you are interested in. To see the particular object, you can click the filter icon in the Object Explorer toolbar, and you can include or exclude objects from view based on their name, schema, or creation date. The filter only applies to the currently selected node. SQL Server Configuration Manager. With SQL Server Configuration Manager, you can start, stop, and restart SQL services. You can also do network configuration for server as well as client. Protocols can also be configured using SQL Server Configuration Manager. SQL Server Configuration Manager allows you to configure server and client network protocols and connectivity options. Protocols can be enabled using the Surface Area Configuration tool. You usually do not need to change the server network connections. You can use the SQL Server Configuration Manager to configure the server connections, so SQL Server listens on a particular network protocol, port, or pipe. SQL Server Configuration Manager allows you to manage server and client protocols, including the ability to force protocol encryption, create or view alias properties, also enable or disable a protocol. You can also change the order in which protocols are used or view properties for a server alias, including the server alias used for the computer to which the client is connecting, the network protocol used for the configuration entry, the parameters associated with the connection address for the network protocol configuration. Surface Area Configuration Tool. As stated earlier, SQL Server 2005 is secured by default. Microsoft has protected the surface area, and they have introduced new tool called Surface Area Configuration to enable the features as per the requirement. Many features that were turned on by default in previous versions, such as XP_CMD shell, are now turned off by default, and it has to be manually turned on. And if you want to use them, Surface area configuration makes it easier for SQL Server administrators to manually turn on those features that are turned off by default. In most cases, you should probably leave the default settings to off unless you have the real need for them and you can keep your SQL Server safer. The SQL Server 2005 surface area configuration uses Windows Management Instrumentation, that is WMI, to view change server settings. The new features in SQL Server 2005 such as CLR integration, SQL Mail and native XML web services all can be configured using the surface area configuration tool. Although each of these features could be configured using TechSQL, the surface area configuration tool provides an easy to use graphical user interface for doing so. If you have various SQL Server instances and some of them need similar configuration parameters, you can export the configuration settings from a base SQL Server instance and then import them into other SQL Server instances. Database Tuning Advisor. For any database, performance is an unavoidable fact. The performance tuning activity is an ongoing activity. The performance of database depends on many factors like the physical database design, which includes indexes, indexed views, and partitioning strategies. Microsoft SQL Server 2005 provides the Database Engine Tuning Advisor, a tool you can use to tune the physical design of your database. Database Engine Tuning Advisor uses a workload in the form of a TechSQL script, a trace file, or a trace table to analyze the effects of running that workload on databases that have been selected for tuning. After consuming the workload, Database Engine Tuning Advisor produces a recommended configuration for physical database design structures to improve performance for the workload that was tuned. Command line utilities. If you are looking to automate installation, administration, or maintenance with scripts, command line utilities are really useful. SQL Server 2005 has got command line utilities, and the primary one is SQL CMD, which has replaced the OSQL and ISQL utilities. Let's start with these utilities. SQL CMD. The advantage of using SQL CMD is it communicates with SQL Server only through the OLDB API. The next advantage is with ISQL and OSQL it was not possible to connect to named instance, but with SQL CMD now it's possible to specify the named instance name. By default, SQL CMD connects to default instance. With SQL CMD you can run SQL queries as well as execute stored procedures. BCP. It is used to import and export data between instances of SQL Server. The next one is DTA, used to analyze the workloads and recommend optimization changes to that workload. DTExec, used to configure and execute a SQL Server Integration Services package. DTUtil, used to manage SQL Server Integration Package. NSControl, used to create and manage instances of notification services. Profiler 90, used to start SQL Server Profiler from command prompt. RS, used to run reporting services scripts. RSconfig, used to configure a report server connection. SAC, used to import or export surface area configuration settings between instances of SQL Server 2005. And finally, table diff, used to compare the data in two different tables and display results.